Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time once again for another episode of the Sunday Night Q&A. Thankfully, there's only a few of these left, and not because we don't love doing them, but pretty soon we're going to be having the show that's supposed to be here, which is the Steelers postgame show. And, you'd rather be talking about games, right? So, once again, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis, the podcast producer here at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Very first time I am sharing a microphone with Greg Benevent. And if you don't know Greg Benevent, he is from What Yin's Talking About, Thursdays at noon on the audio only with Kyle Kreis. And if you don't know who this guy is, you got to know soon, because check it out. One of my favorite shows on the network. Just a whole lot of fun. Greg, welcome to the YouTube, Facebook side of BTSC.
Thank you for having me, Brian. This is a hoot. I'm glad to finally have been able to make it here for the Sunday night thing.
So, you know what? For those that don't know who you are, let us know who Greg Benevent is.
Sure. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I just lived on the north side for a long time till I was in the first or second grade, and my folks moved me out to the suburbs. I was unbelievably lucky in that my great uncle got season tickets from the chief himself. And gave them to my grandfather and then my dad. And then, I had those growing up. So, I mean, despite being, growing a very video game nerd child, I was at all of the games. And of course, it was as many formative experiences as you might imagine. And I went to college. I moved out to Los Angeles and out here. I like Kyle. I'm also a stand-up comic, actor, writer. I do have a day job, but all of that. So this is, but of the things I do in the course of a week, what Shin's talking about is easily one of the most fulfilling, one of the most fun. I mean, Kyle and I were just talking about, we've been doing this for almost exactly a year now, and it's hard to imagine a time when we didn't, or imagine not doing it.
And I got to tell you what, from the start, I loved it. And I was the guy that got to listen to your demo tape. And the demo is completely different. You guys weren't going by Kyle and Greg, and we've never talked about
that. Was his idea. We talked about that.
And it was I'm going to jump in and say, it was my idea to say, hey, let's go with your real names.
Yes, that was a good idea you had.
I didn't love the character names. I think you were season tickets.
It was Kyle came up with them. Yeah, well, I mean, I forget his was. I think his was like the Tomlin Homer, and mine was like Mr. Season Tickets, which is bizarre because we both live in LA. But I think it was. I know what Kyle and I both had. The fear that both of us came to that from was that we were terrified that, like, by making fun of social media, we were going to be like inundated by trolls and people showing up at our houses and hacking our bank accounts or whatever. And yet it's been nothing but love since we started this, no matter who we make fun of and how. So I mean, it's you were so right to have us use our actual names for this, Brian. And,
it was actually Homer de Tomlin.
What his name was, right?
And I listened.
That sounds like Kyle.
This is great, but I just don't love the names. But hey, like me, like everything, you should have. I do a show called Bad Language, right?
I don't think I did. I'm so bad about picking up on these things. Okay.
All right, you've got some work to do. You've got
clearly.
But Monday at noon, Bad Language. But the very first episode of Bad Language, it was the Steelers sermon, where I wrote an entire episode based on what church would be. Like, it was like Kevin Colbert to the Yinzers reading. It was so bad, and it just did not work. Only Tony Defeo was the only guy that loved it, but
okay.
It just did not work. So sometimes things, you got to throw them against the wall and see how long they stick. And that's exactly it. And we have we also have some BTSCers in the live chat today. Dave Schofield's just checking in to finally see Greg. And and also somebody I was telling you about, this is something new, if you've noticed, to our YouTube Facebook audience. We have the Jerry Cherry Band just to start. Now, we had them on our audio only shows, but Jerry Cherry, who gave us music, and of course, he is fantastic. If you have not checked out his YouTube channel, It is, I mean, man, I don't play the guitar. I would love to learn, and that's probably where I'm going to start. But I've told some people to check it out. His stuff is absolutely phenomenal. I love the music. When I'm producing the shows, my daughter sings along with the songs now. She knows the songs just from the clips. So intros, outros, the only music you hear here would be from Jerry Cherry, and he says, "Hello, Steelers fam." He is in the audience tonight too.
Oh, that's cool.
A lot of regulars. Our YouTube audience, our Steelers BTSC Nation audience is kind of like Cheers. Everybody knows your name, so it's good to see everybody here. Sherry Richards, actually, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Maybe Tony Defeo wasn't alone. That sermon was the best. Oh man, I could have never kept up with that every single week, and it was just, it was a little too, it was too over the top. But hey, what we're here to talk about today is a little bit more about you. I want to find out, when was your first game?
My first game was, as best I can remember, the Cower home game against the Oilers, the big comeback at Three Rivers. My memory serves, I don't think they were down 20, but they were definitely down double digits in Cower's first season. And they had a dramatic comeback. I mean, I refused to go to the games as a very small child. I was the opposite of athletic. I think my parents tried to take me to a Pirates game of the great teams of the 90s, and I brought a novel so I could read as opposed to actually watching the game. But something hit right before adolescence, and I was there from Cower's first season.
And that's fantastic. And you are a Penguins fan too, right?
Yeah, I think I realized I totally framed the shot improperly. You can see this Bryan Russ jersey my aunt got me here behind me. I was trying to just get the white of my apartment, but I've totally messed that up. But yeah, I was, absolutely. I mean, also remember, I just turned 40 a few months ago, so I was at the right age to be there when the Penguins, the mighty teams of the 90s and all that. I mean, I remember when I was in college and I would come back home to Pittsburgh. I went to college in Philly, and they would run, and no matter how bad the teams were, they would run this commercial where Ryan Malone would talk about, pretending to be Mario in his driveway. And it feels like every time I heard that thing, I would go out to buy tickets to watch that team that won 15 games out of 82 play. It was so I was at the right age for all of that.
That's awesome. My very first game was 1982, and we're 10 years apart. And if yours was 92 and mine being 82, I could tell you December 5th, 82, Bradshaw to Stallworth, I think it was 75 yards. It was amazing. So I remember that well. Big Bro Sco talks about his first game, which was just a couple weeks later in that 1982 strike season, so against New England. So I remember him talking about that. We don't forget our first games, and it's great that you had an opportunity to go to all those games. Fantastic. The reason I brought up the fact that you're a Penguins fan as well, I want to ask you the first question. So what kind of omen is it that the Steelers, with the first round pick, select Kenny Pickens? With the second round pick, the Steelers... Kenny Pickett, excuse me. With a second round pick, they select George Pickens, and now Owen Pickering, the defenseman, a big 6'4" guy, is the first round pick of the Penguins. Does this mean the Pirates are going to be taking Justin Pickford? I just made that name up.
But no, I mean, it very well could. And you could have said you didn't make that name up, and I absolutely would have believed you. I mean, but that's also, that's the other part of it. It's just, we talk so much about, just having looked up a little bit about this Pickering guy. It's you hope that the good omen would be is that these guys don't all necessarily come up at the same time. That Pickering's not playing for another 4 years. I mean, Pickens, might be at the end of his rookie contract by the time he makes it out of Wilkes-Barre, and the Pirates' first round pick is almost assuredly going to be the same thing. So it's as good an omen. I mean, it feels like, it's one of those things. I mean, as much as there's all those idiots that are like, we live in a simulation, it's one of those few things that makes you look at it like dogs in a fan. Like, okay, I guess I could buy that.
So Dave Schofield is saying down 20-7 versus Houston going to the fourth.
That feels right.
2 TDs to win it 21-20.
I didn't think right. I remember they were down double digits, and the thing other than the thing I remember the clearest, and this might just be being a very partisan fan and all that kind of thing, is there was an Oilers fan there dressed head to toe in the blue and white, and when they were up big at the half, he walked into like the concession area, pumping his fist. And I remember for the rest of my life, the times I was in Three Rivers, thinking about doing that. Like, is it like you mentioned omens? Is this the kind of thing like a bad omen? Is this going to, make it bad for the Steelers through the rest of the game?
Now, I could tell you exactly where I was. I was in college. I worked in the morning. And at the radio station, I had actually I was like running Casey Kasem that morning, and
Wow.
but I had to do the early shift. It was like the 6 a.m. shift, and we were supposed to have a touch football game against another fraternity, but that game got postponed, and I was upset. And we used to always watch it at my fraternity house, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna go home and watch it with my dad, and I watched that game with my father, so I remember that well. So let's go ahead and take our first question, since I gave you the first question. Steeler Chick 46. What are we most excited to see from this year's team? What scares us most about this year's team, Greg?
Speaking personally, I whether it's a cop out or not, I feel it's the both answers the exact same thing. The quarterbacks. I mean, I would going into this offseason, I was the most scared by it. I'm still scared by it to see what Trubisky is, to see what, Pickett or Mason could be. But, being at this time, we're in July, we're a few weeks out from training camp. It feels like a time, if there's ever a time to be optimistic, this is it. So I've now worked my way. I've either worked my way or I've been worked all the way around to I'm now excited for it. I want to see what these quarterbacks can do. I have bought into everywhere I've read someone with it, I think it stopped being a hot take, the idea that the quarterback play might be something of an improvement over last year, even except maybe outside of the fourth quarter. I mean, this is famous last words kind of stuff, but I'm now excited to see where this goes.
So, and that scares you as well?
Yes, because I could be wrong. This might not work out. I mean, it could be. It's very hard to be negative again. Less than 2 weeks into July, but the bottom really could fall out of this quarterback thing. I mean, even outside of the idea of injuries. So yeah, I think that's both exciting and scary at this moment.
So CBS Sports did something that I did not want them to do, and rank Pittsburgh in the top 5 of their most improved teams this year.
Whoa.
And that just happened this week. I believe it was Wednesday when that came out. Cincinnati was number 5. Teams like the Chargers were in there. Philadelphia was in there. There were a couple other because there's only 5. But when you look at that, I'm not a big fan of that because I love when the Steelers play with a chip on their shoulder and believe that everybody hates them. Like that 1992 team. And I talk about this all the time. Bill Cowher, his first game was against Houston, and they were a juggernaut back then. And it was in Houston. He had that fake punt, and they went and beat them up and down. And they beat them, and Sports Illustrated had them a week before, going 4-12.
I did not know that.
They went 11-5 that year, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. But that started building that team.
Absolutely.
And I love it when they're going through transition, and everybody is doubting this team. But people are starting to take notice that quarterback situation might be better than it actually is. So great question. Thank you so much, yes. Steeler Chick 46. Joseph Mislajenovic. I hope that is right, but I'm going to go with it. Even though the Steelers, you think I got it?
You're close, at least. I mean,
yeah, I think that's good. Mislajenovic. I practiced it for like 3 minutes while you were talking about what scares you. Even though the Steelers have upgraded in most positions, Greg, do you think we have closed the gap with the top tier teams in the NFL? And that kind of lends to what I was just talking about, with some people saying that the Steelers are improved. But do you think with I guess we got to call the Cincinnati Bengals a top team, with the Chiefs, with the Buffalo Bills, do you think that gap has closed?
I think the gap has closed. I think there's still a gap. I don't think they've overtaken those teams. I don't think that if, they were to play in week 2 or even when the Steelers play in week 1, I mean, I don't think that line's going to move a whole lot towards the Steelers between now and then, barring some kind of injury we hope doesn't happen. But I think they've closed the gap. But I certainly don't think they'd be picked over those teams in a game. But I do think that, and again, optimism runs wild during, the dog days of summer here. I don't think it's crazy that, hey, they could win a game against one of those top tier teams in the league. And it wouldn't have to, and like for them to win the game, it wouldn't take like, the series of cosmic rationalizations ahead of time that it would have taken for them to beat the Chiefs last year, or the bizarre things that would have had to occur for it to happen. They very well could go out there and just beat one of those teams on horriest cliche there is on any given Sunday should that happen. I think they're in a place where that could happen. I think the gap is closed. I do think the gap still exists.
All right, we need to go ahead and get some more questions in there. So throw your cues so we can give you A's, and we'll be glad to do that. So right now, while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I just got to bring up Bryan Brown, big friend of the show. And he just says, I want you to comment on this. Cincinnati can kiss it.
Yeah, I concur, Brian. I second this motion. It hereby passes. And I as much as I don't like the Bengals, and I'd certainly love to make fun of them in their own stadium, I'm afraid of heights, and every time I see someone go down the escalator, I always get a little tightness in my chest because it just doesn't seem like a safe situation, particularly in cold weather. I can't see where they are below that. It just seems like it'd be easy to topple over that drunk. Anyway, none of that's what you asked, Brian. Cincinnati can kiss it, indeed.
How bad is your fear of heights? Because my wife is not very height friendly.
I don't like to park at the top of a parking lot. We're talking about Steelers games. I mean, we mentioned the tickets. Those tickets are in the lower level. I've been at games. I don't, if I'm going to be at the top of Heinz Field, I want to be up almost towards the back sort of area. So there's none of that like leaning over kind of stuff. I didn't like being on the top level at Three Rivers. I mean, I was a kid, but I mean, it's just, it's too many horror movies, too much, things could fall over. It's a different kind of catastrophizing. So, it's not like, I mean, I can get on a roller coaster, but like, I don't seek it out.
I see. Let's go ahead and just say this: Joseph Mislajenovic, right on with the last name. So
hey, good right. Job, Brian. That's a tough one. You did good there.
So Noah Colback, I don't understand why people have us losing to Miami, which has been the most overrated team this offseason. That's week 7, and it's in Miami. What are your thoughts on that game?
I mean, I second Noah's thoughts too. That does seem like a weird game to pick the Steelers to lose. A couple things about why people might have the Steelers losing to Miami is just, it's if you're just going through the 17 games and you have to pick a game where they lose, it's very easy to just mark off the ones where they're on the road. Plus, I also think like if someone's doing a clickbait kind of like, hey, here's just, what every team's going to do. If you're going to pick the Steelers to win an upset game on the road, it's very easy to say like, oh, okay, and they're also going to lose one they probably should win, such as this road game in Miami. I also think, as I just said moments ago about being susceptible to positivity here in July, I think that holds true across the league. And there's certainly people that look like, hey, Miami sure spent a lot of money. So perhaps that translates to some wins that we might not otherwise give them.
All right. So something happened over the weekend, Greg, and I got to tell you, this is something that has devastated a lot of Steelers fans, and most of them female Steelers fans. So were you invited to the Trent Jordan Watt wedding?
I was not. I've actually walked dogs past one of his houses. I've done that. That's as far as I've gotten. I know my one aunt has waved to him, and he has allegedly waved back. So that is the extent of my relationship with Mr. Trent Jordan. But yeah, I mean, I saw the pictures. And I know Kyle's going to bring this up on our next episode because he always does. But at some point, bemoaning like, look how there weren't all Steelers at this wedding. And I always say the same thing to him, like, when you get married, are you bringing just all of your coworkers? That always seems so strange to me. But
well, I think you talked about that, something like that, the other day.
Yeah, it's because someone else got married or someone else had a thing, and it's just that's always a bit strange to me. I mean, you love your coworkers, and it's obviously being a football team is not the same as working in the the department store, but there is still the end that these people are colleagues, and it's you don't have them absolutely everywhere. But yeah, I was not. It looked nice. I mean, I saw the pictures, but it didn't look like it happened on like a moon space station. Like it looked like a very nice rich people wedding, not like, oh, someone here was actual royalty. Like it was a wedding that happens in this dimension, You know
what? I almost invited Bill Cowher to my wedding in 2007, but we had way too many people. He would have loved it because we had an open bar and karaoke. So it was great. I did get injured. And I was completely sober at my wedding, but I got injured.
Wow.
Ironically, doing karaoke because
injured?
Well, when I do karaoke, I kind of roam the stage and like
okay.
I do
use
theatrics.
Okay, yeah.
So I was doing the Prince / Madonna crawl, and I tore some ligaments in my foot. And I was completely
Cowher should have
sober.
been there for his. Yeah,
I know. And ironically, you're never going to guess what the song was.
I mean, obviously, it's the Prince Madonna thing. I mean, for pure irony's sake, I'm going to say "Like a Virgin."
No, it wasn't. It was "Hurts So Good."
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good choice, and I can also see how that would lend itself to a certain level of theatricality as well.
Yes. So, and actually, Jeff Hartman and Dave Schofield have seen it because they saw it back in January at my 50th birthday party. Which I did it in front of a live band though, so that was one of my bucket list things. So I finally got a chance to do that. I would have sent you an invite, but
I don't think we met each other yet by a good 15 years.
Oh yeah, well the wedding, but no, to the birthday party.
You met months. I'm sorry. Yes. No. I should have actually listened versus just jumping in there. Yes.
Well, that'll be my time machine thing. I'll invite you if I get a time machine. Anthony T. No relation to Mr. T.
Sure.
And, hey, do you know Mr. T's first name?
I mean, this is one of those things I read once. We used to do bar trivia every Tuesday night.
I do it every Monday night, and we had this.
Oh, okay. I'm sure I got it wrong then.
Know it. Lawrence. Because his name is Lawrence
Payron. Oh, right. It's one of those things I'd heard that and I'd got it wrong then.
Yeah, Larry T. No relation to Coach T or Anthony T. So do you think that the Steelers picked Kenny Pickett first round to let him sit behind an average, if not below average, Mitch Trubisky? And how close, with parentheses, do you think that competition is?
Boy, I really like this question because this is one of the more interesting ways I think, talking about Pickett sitting has been phrased. I like what I like to think, and I certainly am not privy to anything, but that the idea of Pickett sitting behind an average Trubisky is acceptable. The idea of sitting behind a below average Trubisky is not. So everything. I mean, how many? And it's interesting because I feel like the attitude that Anthony's pointing out here has been parroted so many times in the media, just phrased a different way, where they can get into that conversation of like, what game do you think Kenny will start by? And I think they usually say like by week 4 or 5 or something. That's a more direct but less interesting way than how Anthony phrased this question. So for that to happen, it's barring injury, it's Trubisky starts average and then ends up below average by that game, and then they move Kenny in. I wonder about how close the thing is, just because everyone says the same thing. Everyone says the same thing about how Mitch is far away ahead of everybody. And, and Kenny barely got reps in the minicamp thing behind Mason. I do think they went into this with the idea of like, we'll probably start Mitch. We'll throw as many resources at quarterback as possible. And I would wonder if, just in the interest of, things maybe not always being the way they're reported, I wonder if it's a little closer than people think. But I do believe they're committed to the idea of Mitch starting as long as possible until he dips too much into the below average, like Anthony T here said.
I really think that this is supposed to be his year, just like it was supposed to be Alex Smith's year when Patrick Mahomes was a rookie in 2017. And I think they're playing, it's an insurance policy. Really, because it's just to let Kenny Pickett learn, and if it gets to the point you have to bring him in, like that was kind of the plan in 2004 for Ben Roethlisberger.
Right. He wasn't supposed to start until Tommy got hurt. Yes, it was that. That's exactly right.
So there you go. So we're not going to talk about Kenny Pickett here, but Tyler Barr says rookie you're most excited to see. So besides Kenny Pickett, which might be
it's just the obvious answer for everyone. I am excited for Pickens. I've heard too much. I was initially poo-pooing the pick. I remember I was driving around listening to the draft, and you could practically hear the Steelers media chanting for that Travis Jones, the nose tackle that ended up going to the Ravens when they picked Pickens. But I'm excited to hear, because I like to think I'm not susceptible to hype, but I am. I'm susceptible to hype. I am a human being. I live in this world. I want to see this team do well. I have heard way too much about how many amazing things Pickens can do. I have seen too many of those clips where he just, throws that Georgia Tech guy around and then catches touchdowns. He seems to float in the air. So yeah, I have totally bought in one way or the other, and that's what I want to see.
Hey, the Steelers have had bad guy wide receivers from Georgia before. I believe, I don't know. I heard this guy, Hines Ward, but I'm not sure.
But Hines wasn't doing that jumping over dude like Pickens. That was a different time. Yeah.
Oh, he did jump over a dude. Remember in the Philadelphia game in 2004,
right.
he leapt over a guy.
Oh, I remember that.
Did the mocking with the wing.
Oh, I'll never forget turning to my father and saying, I think T.O. is yelling at Donovan McNabb. Like, that's one of those happy, like, it's just one of those, like, where were you when it happened kind of things.
Hey, they showed it I was at that game. They showed it
Me
on
too.
the screen. Too.
Yeah, it was great. I remember, because we were on his, oh man, that's happier than like multiple Christmases. Like that was such a lovely memory.
The implosion was awesome. So let's stick with this, because Sherry Richards is asking, who are the Steelers' 6 wide receivers this year? Of course, Pickens is one of them. And we know that Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool are definitely, they're the other 2. That's 3. Now, your compadre on what Ian's talking about on a show with me the other day said, this was bold and bizarre predictions, said that Mr. CA3, Calvin Austin III, could start the season on the practice squad, which means that you will never see him in black and gold if that happens. So I respectfully disagreed with him. So,
I've done the same.
So we'll put CA3 on there too. So who would be your other 2?
I mean, if we're to start the year, I mean, I'm reading that into Sherry's question. It's just, unless something really happens, it's hard for me not to see them put Miller out there. He has that rapport with Mitch. He's been around this for a minute now. It's not like he just walked into the team. I can absolutely see him as one of those guys. I think they'd like to get just something else to get Mitch a little more comfortable. And the 6, I go back and forth on this, and I've done it with Kyle. Kyle has worn me down to the point where I'm willing to give Miles Boykin a look. You can tell how enthused I am about this by what I've done with my hand and my head. But yes, that is, I'm willing to go that as 6. But as you can tell, I'm not exactly locked into that, Sherry.
Yeah, so he definitely loves the Boykin thing there. So let's go rapid fire.
Sure.
State of the Steelers outside the quarterback. What position are you most looking forward to seeing in training camp or preseason?
I outside of quarterback, I'll go inside linebacker. I mean, I'm not sure how much they're going to use Jack. I'm not sure how much they're going to use Bush, but I feel like you kind of got to use him at least a little bit. I mean, it's Bushkill coming off the injury, Jack being new to the thing. I mean, those might be. I mean, sure, they might rest them for all 3 games, whatever. But if they're out there for any amount of time, that's utterly fascinating to me because that feels like that could be as important as any other position.
Bernardo Vasquez, not to dunk on Big Ben here, but don't you guys think that his departure kind of lighthearted the mood around the quarterback room and the team in general? Tomlin looks excited and Mason looks loose and cool.
1,000%. I could not agree with you more, Bernardo. I mean, I've talked about this on what Jin's talking about. I mean, I'll never forget that story where it was when AB was still on the team in the Post Gazette, where they talked about Ben would get on the phone from one end of the locker room and call AB on the other end of the locker room to turn down the music. And I remember thinking, like, these guys are Hall of Famers and all-time great players, and I would not want to work in this environment with either. I mean, that is a tough colleague to work with. So yes, I think everyone's a little bit looser, not having, and it's not a dunk on him. He's a man, Hall of Famer, and has a very clear expectation of how things should be. But you know what it's like when the teacher's out of the room, and now the substitute teacher's here. We're all a little bit calmer, and I think that's sort of how some of this has crept in.
Very interesting. I love your take on that. Fantastic. Anthony T is back. How crucial is the loss of Tuitt, and what does this mean for a recovering Alu?
I didn't think Tuitt was going to retire. I sort of got blindsided by that. I think they got a little more blindsided by that than they thought. That might also be my own emotional state I'm projecting there. So now, because now you have 2 guys that are recovering between Ogunjobi and Alu. I mean, I think it affects it a lot. I think the defensive line will be better this coming year because it would almost more or less have to be mathematically. But I definitely think it could be something that unfortunately could hold the team back depending on how those dudes recover.
Bernardo Vasquez, which current Steelers player is more likely to organize a beehive bachelor party for TJ? If you don't know much about our shows last year when we were talking about the Steelers not being at St. Vincent, we found a Latrobe gentleman's club called the Beehive, and we talk about it a whole lot. People think that I frequent it, and no, I have never been there. So who do you think would be the guys organizing a bachelor party?
Well, I mean, I mean, the true answer to this is Juju, but he's gone. So Juju could put together an amazing bachelor party, but I mean, it's hard for me not to go. So, I mean, you know what? There's 2 easy answers here. The easy answer is Chase seems like a man who knows how to party. Whenever I see him somewhere, he looks like he's having a good time. He's partying. But the clear answer here is it's his brother. Derek also seems like a guy that at least has some idea of how to party and also knows how TJ would enjoy a party. Now, TJ's idea of a wild bachelor party may be people sitting around a table tersely looking at each other and sipping Cokes. I don't know. But I think Derek could also be the guy that could put together the bachelor party.
Well, after a lap dance, TJ's going to need some oxygen. Yeah. Steelers freak. Derek wasn't invited due to lack of connection.
That is I also love the avatar for Steelers freak. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Sherry, I'm going to answer this one. Sherry
Sure.
Richards, I'm totally upset L.C. Greenwood is not on the Hall of Fame veterans ballot. I don't get it. Do you? No, I don't. I am crestfallen. There's one guy that deserves to be there, and it is L.C. Greenwood, or as he would say that the L.C. stood for, Lover Cool. Who is going to wear the green dot? George Teston is thinking either Minka or Edmonds.
I have no idea. I mean, I remember last year the entire controversy of Schobert, basically got off his Uber, dropped him off at South Water Street, and they gave him the dot as he walked in. And I actually shows you how little I know about these kind of things. I was unaware a guy in the secondary could wear the green dot. I would like to think Mink is the guy wearing the dot, but that's, again, coming from the fan perspective of, oh, that's the guy that seems to know the most about what's happening out there. I mean, if I had to pick who I would want to wear the dot, Minka 1A and Edmonds 1B. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does end up with, Jack or Bush, which is sure is what they want. But yeah, I think you kind of nailed it in terms of who would wear the dot.
All right, my man Britsburg Owen,
There's Owen. That's someone I know from Facebook. Yes,
a guy who was actually on this show before and who has done stuff for BTSC and will again.
Oh.
Would you offer Joe Hayden a 1-year deal? That's interesting. I kind of would.
I kind of would too. I mean, it's easy to. I mean, I would throw out the obvious caveat. We're like, well, how much does this 1-year deal cost? But if one of these undrafted rookie running back guys shows that they could be the other back, if somebody really cheap falls off, I mean, it's not my money. So yeah, if it doesn't preclude you from having enough resources to fill another hole or to keep you from getting something else, I think that would be great.
Joseph asks this, if allowed, one more question. If things don't go well on offense, do you think Matt Canada lasts the whole season? I'm going to jump in with absolutely. That's how they do business.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to even piggyback on that. I'm agree with you. They're going to leave him the entire season. What may change, and we wouldn't find it out for months and or years, is to have responsibility stripped behind the scenes. If things start to go truly awry, I mean, they could take some things, responsibilities from him or go around him or, I could see that happening. And by see that, I mean, we won't see that happening. We'll find out about it in someone's tell-all down the line.
So here's a comment, M.Marcus39. Yep, y'all quit sleeping on Mason. I actually agree with you. I don't think we're really sleeping on Mason. Just the fact that when you bring in two other guys, when you bring in the top free agent quarterback at the time, which he was, because the other big names that moved were in trades, and when you bring in the first person selected at the quarterback position in the draft, then that means that the team is obviously looking elsewhere. But no, and Brian Brown says, I definitely think that the Steelers are going to give some snaps to Mason Rudolph because whatever the situation is, he might end up in there. And you know what? We are going to have to go ahead and trust him. And there's, he's your whipping boy now, but if he wins 6 straight and takes you to the playoffs and does well in the playoffs, then he's a hero. And some of us are hypocrites.
Oh, well, a couple things. One, all of us are hypocrites. And two, he doesn't have to win in the playoffs to be a hero. He can be a hero if, there's some injuries or Mitch doesn't play well and Kenny's not ready. Mason's a hero if he comes in and wins 2 or 3 games. I mean, I think the idea that, I think they were very reticent about clearing a lane for Mason, but I do think they're going to give him a chance to win this thing. If he goes in there and does whatever he does behind the scenes or even in the games and blows everyone away, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they give him a chance to be the number 2 and all that. I think, I take them at their word because you hear from everyone else how honest they are, is that they are going to give Mason a chance to win this thing. So yeah, I mean, I personally am not sleeping on Mason, but I mean, again, it's one of those things. I wouldn't be surprised if they do trade him for a 7th-round pick. I also wouldn't be surprised if they hold on to him all season so you don't have the Duck situation again.
That's absolutely, because that Duck situation that kind of snuck up on them, and a lot of people don't realize that we were begging, fans were begging to get Mason Rudolph back at the end. And if it wasn't for, was it JC or Finney that stepped on his foot and got him hurt, you would have seen more of Mason Rudolph, and they could have made the playoffs that season.
He looked good in that Jets game until he got hurt. He looked genuinely good in that Jets game. But also, you talk about back in the Steelers were begging the XFL to get Landry Jones back. I mean, people forget how that thing went. Like,
I wasn't begging the
well, no, we weren't. No, you and I weren't begging for Landry Jones. Begging's a strong word, and obviously we use hyperbole and purposes. But yeah.
Okay, this is the last one. It's not a question, but I got to bring this up because I think it's brilliant. Bernardo Vasquez, one more time. Don't care that they're offensive players. They should split green dot duties between Kendrick Green and Kevin Dotson. Please don't ban me. No, I'm not banning.
I was gonna say, yeah, we're applauding. This is the kind of thing I tell Kyle on my podcast with that. Like, if you're gonna post something on social media, this is where the bar is. This is the standard. None of that like negative crap. Something that's a fun play on words. This is the standard you should meet. Something fun that's not obnoxious, that kind of sticks in your head for a second. You could see reply. You were saying to somebody at work or at a dull moment in a phone call or something. That's the kind of thing to post on social media.
Yes, dad jokes, and that's a dad joke to me, basically.
Right, it's a dad joke, but please don't ban me. I think elevates it just a little bit. A dad joke is to just say that and then just let it lay there, like, ha, I squirted milk in your eye. The please don't ban me implies a humanity behind it.
What's your favorite dad joke?
Oh God, I mean, I don't have one because it's always one of those things. Like, whenever I try to say something funny, I mean, I'm old enough I can use a press your luck reference, but like it's, I always say something like, I'm going to say a dad joke, it'll be like the whammy will come up, and it's I don't know. I was ready for the Steelers question. I wasn't ready for the dad joke question. Do you have a favorite dad joke? I'm just going to keep
actually
vamping.
I do.
Please save me here.
If you pay $2.49 for a slice of lemon meringue in Bermuda, and you pay $3.15 for a slice of cherry pie in Barbados, what are they?
Is overpriced?
Those are the pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay. See, right. Okay. Now it took me a second. All right. I see. So, I mean, I've never had a good, not to go on about this. This is not the dad jokes podcast, but like what defines a dad joke is it's like pun adjacent, right? Or like, or it's like, it's delivered to elicit a groan.
Yes.
Really. Okay. I mean, I was all, okay. I've learned stuff already here, folks. This is just my first time. Yeah.
And then Gene Smith, what's a pirate's favorite letter? If it's not R, I don't I have no clue. Let's get on out of here on that note before we start. George Teston, Jerry Cherry, they're all Oh, we were wrong. Gene Smith says it's not R. It's the C.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. That's it. Okay. It took me a second. I mean, maybe I'm not, mentally sharp enough to catch up to the dad joke. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm there with you. Yeah.
We were going obvious, and I like that swerve there, Gene Smith. That's awesome. All right. We definitely got to get on out of here. I'm the guy always yelling at you guys to not be long, and now I'm long.
Kyle resents that so much.
What's that?
I probably shouldn't say that, but yes, it's. But yeah, no, you're right. It's Bryan is the best, principal that behind the steel curtain high school could have. He absolutely keeps us at a good time limit. So yes,
I'm a nice principal though.
Yes, he is. It's that. Yeah, the one that asked about your car. Yeah, it's.
All right, Schofield's in on it now. Dude, that's the Pirates' favorite piano key.
We got so much more engagement with this dad joke thing than the Steelers question. But that's what July's about. I mean, it's better talking about this than like, oh, who's going to be the third string on special teams? Like, this is the time of optimism and fun. Like, there's not going to be time for dad jokes if they lose 2 in a row. Like, this is the time for that kind of thing.
No, actually, it was a typo. It was no. That's the Pirates' favorite piano key.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the do was part of the. So, okay, I pretended to play the cello for like a decade growing up. So like, all right, so I was never real clear with that. All right, I was one. All right.
That's what this show is all about. It's fun. Now, something we got to talk about with you, and
please.
In this time slot, well, actually a little later on the West Coast, you guys are going to be doing the postgame show. Is that correct?
Yes, we are way too hyped for that. We are way too ambitious in terms of ideas and what we'll do with it, which will hopefully be pared down by the time that happens. But yes, we are super excited to be
I've
doing
heard
the live post game show. Oh, you've heard some of what he has in
I've heard
mind?
some of
Okay.
the ideas. Yeah,
Okay,
Kyle's
yes,
excited.
yeah.
If he is indeed still with BTSC at the time, because now that he thinks that I'm the mean principal with
He does not think you're the mean principal.
with limiting you guys on time.
Well, it's also too. We don't have. Unfortunately, we don't have all day to do that show. Believe me, we would if we could. But yeah, we don't. So yeah, that's.
If you did, then I'm just putting you on 5 days a week.
Oh man, that'd be a hoot. That'd be a hoot. But yes, no, we are super excited to do the live post game show. I mean, it's and something he and I have talked about is that we're as you probably gathered from seeing me talk today, or if you've heard if you've heard us on what Yin's talking about, we are not the stat guys. We're not the people breaking down, the all the responsibilities of the back linebacker in the 3-4 defense. But we do understand, but we do get the emotional ups and downs of the fans. So we wanted to do a post-game show that's on the West Coast that encompasses the game and what happened, and also, works us through the emotions of what happened during the game and after that. That's what brought us to this, and we're really excited to explore that in the post-game context.
That's one of the reasons I'm here as well, because I'm more of the I used to make this joke, and this joke did not work. I used to say I'm not the X's and O's guys. I'm the O's, the ecstasies and O's guy. Just like I'm like feeling more
Right,
of that.
right. Oh yeah.
Then they thought I was dirty, so then I quit.
I sort of wondered about that. I did do like Dogs in a Fan to a second, like, wow, I didn't know this was that kind of podcast. I just said different things earlier, but yeah.
I gotta work on something better.
No. You're good. You're managing the whole network of this stuff. My God.
All right. So we need you to do 3 things. Well, before that, you know what? Check out some of the shows that were on earlier this weekend. You had the 6-pack with Tony. You had We Run the North. And you also had, well, what else did you have? Yeah, Touchdown Under as well. Tomorrow morning, Monday morning, you're going to get a healthy dose with a very good guest. It is going to be Jeff Hartman with with a great guest on not Touchdown Under. That's not his show. On Let's Ride. I should know the name of his show. I named it.
But you have so many shows. I don't know how you keep this straight. But yes,
I came up with a name for Let's Ride. So with that, and then also check out me on Bad Language as well. So we do need you to do three things. 1, stay safe out there. 2, be true to yourself. And 3, always be behind the steel curtain. For Greg Benevent, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. Keep your feet on the ground.